I want to really quickly talk about, well, let me shift gears here. So when we talk about the amount that somebody pays into the Village of Sherman, and everybody's seen this document before, I had Mike print it off pretty big for me. So in terms of a property tax bill, and the misconception of where the dollars actually go, right? So if you pay property taxes in the Village of Sherman, this is what it looks like. And everybody's got their piece of the pie. And there's a few nuances in how this all, in government finance and village finance, when we start talking about TIF funds and where they go and who actually is situated in the TIF and what happens with their tax bill. But we're gonna talk about a regular, normal tax bill, because most of Sherman does not even live in the TIF, the Tax Increment Financing Fund district. It's mainly our businesses and some residential, but it's a small percentage. Now that being said, so the Williamsville School District, the schools, which is pretty much anywhere, a lot of schools are funded from local property taxes throughout the United States, it just depends. But in Illinois, schools get a huge portion of the property tax bill, and it amounts to about 65–66%. So that's their piece of the actual property tax bill. Then the next biggest is Sangamon County. Then you got the community college district being the third big, So you got Williamsville School District, the county, the community college district, which is essentially Lincoln Land for this area. And we move on. Well, guess who's right here? The fourth biggest in the Village of Sherman. If you're looking at a property tax bill, it actually is situated in the Springfield Park District, of which almost a third of Sherman is. Big portion goes to them, relatively speaking.
Who is that again?
The Springfield Park District. So they encompass almost 30% of our town, which is a whole other issue, which is another meeting that I'll be attending on Wednesday night, that our citizens are working against and working on the issue and various different things. I think, could you please add Trustee Long to the roll? So Brian, just to ramp you up real fast, we're talking about funding. We're talking about how the village gets its revenues. We're talking about the income tax line item. Essentially right now, it's gonna suffer a 10.23% decrease, which amounts to an aggregate amount of $46,000. Goes from like $49,000 down to $403,000, which is one of our top 2 revenue producing sources. But we're also talking about how much somebody actually pays in the Village of Sherman when they live here. So if you pay income taxes out of your paycheck, like when you went to work every day for the Department of Corrections, you paid thousands and thousands of dollars. The effective amount of money that you actually contributed back to the Village of Sherman when it was distributed back to us through the local government distributive fund was $97, was around $100, that's it. $100 we got back from you for your thousands of dollars that you paid in personal income taxes on your paycheck for going to work. We'd only get $100 back the way that government financing is set up. And then all those other thousands that you paid went to various different other things, whether it was for schools or other projects that the state does and everything along those lines. But in terms of the property tax bill, then you got Fancy Creek, who's next. Then the Sherman Fire Protection District, then the Sherman Library District, then you get down to the Sherman Court, which is a very small amount. And I'll get into that in just a second. And then you got the Water Reclamation District, where our water and sewer is treated. And then you got Fancy Creek Township. I'm sorry, did I skip over Road and Bridge? But anyway, so when we talk about the Village of Sherman, up until about 3 years ago, that percentage, that little sliver right there, was it was way smaller than that. It used to be less than 1% of a tax bill is what we would get to pay our public works, to pay our police, to pay emergency management, to pay for the operations from a property tax bill. Now it's about 2.5% of a property tax bill, but we're still only getting right at 1%, a little less than 1% for operations. The other 1.5% is actually levied and included in that to pay back the bond for the roads that we repaved. And we repaved a lot of roads. We didn't do the entire village, but that bond came in at $1.5 million. And so we repaved most of Flagland. We repaved, and it was a significant portion of the amount of money that we bonded, but we repaved all of Old Tipton School Road. We did a couple bad streets in Steeplechase, some bad streets in Birch Lakes, some bad streets in some other areas located throughout Sherman. Well, there continues to be bad streets that pop up from year to year based on expansion, contraction of, pavement. When it's cold, it's hot and all that stuff, whether it's snowplow rips it up or just the normal wear and tear. So the amount of money that's coming to the village for operations is less than 1% of a tax bill. And like I said, the other 1.5%, 1.6% potentially, is actually going to pay back that bond issuance for those roads, for that specific purpose, nothing else. So what we need to do is we need to determine what our two biggest line item sources are to start off. And that's the income tax and that's the sales tax. So getting into the sales tax, we know that this pandemic, the recession, has slowed things down. Let's open our documents here to, and it's this one here, total expenditures. The budget from last year. So you got that? Was that in the document? No. Okay. So for the sales tax, and I'm going off, you guys, I don't think you have this right in front of you right away. Do you have in their documents the actual revenue projections from last year?
I don't think so.
Okay.
That would be this document here.
Yeah, that's it.
This is last year.
Okay. Yeah, there we go, I'm sorry. So that document, if you turn to that, just turn the page right over. And you'll see fiscal year 20 is the first column, and this is our budget. If you look at our, again, like I said, if you look at our two largest line item sources, it's not even close for what portion of the budget that they make up. Everything else is very small, right? So what are the two biggest line item sources on there? Jay, can you look at the income tax line and tell me what that reads?
$440,932.
So that was our number for last year. Trustee Gray, Pam, can you tell me what our sales tax number was for last year? It's the $633,300. Now, Trustee Rockford, can you find the next largest line item in there and tell me what that number is and what it is?
Is it the 81,000 property tax?
Yep, so
Okay.
from every single citizen in the village of Sherman, okay, very good. Yeah,
But that doesn't take into account the
yeah,
losses.
okay. I'm sorry, and I just misspoke actually.
For the loan, like, okay.
So, I said from every single citizen in the village of Sherman, which is not, that's actually a misspeak. From every single house in the village of Sherman, we only get to run our operations, $81,287.
That's per household.
Yeah. So spread out over 2,000, how many households are there, 2034, 2019, something like that? What is it?
210 according to the Springfield Park District.
Yeah.
2010, 2010, I'm sorry, 2010.
As they don't collect 200.
You
So-
said it was 2021, they said it was 2010 in their document, so.
So total households, let's just say, spread out over 2,000 households. That's why we get such a small portion
$40.
of 81, that's our levy that we certify with the county. $81,287 essentially. And that's what's put in the budget. So then, Trustee Long, what would be our next largest line item source?
Looks like it's gonna be the gaming tax.
So that's 46, so we budgeted last year in fiscal year 20, $46,925. Now, keep in mind, when we talk about revenues falling off and what we have to plan for and project for, we also just had 3 months of bars and restaurants being shut down. So that meant nobody was playing gaming machines, attending our local establishments, and so that line item is gonna fall off. And by any and all accounts, there could be a possibility that as we move forward, and if cases continue to rise, whether you believe, whatever it is, the governor and the state of affairs would suggest that we could potentially be going into some other further stay-at-home orders, which would affect that revenue source and many other revenue sources. So, the next largest line item would be $44,500 for the franchise tax. Road and Bridge will get about $43,500, and then everything falls off after that, significantly, to half of that. So we should start by going forward and establishing the parameters of what these line item sources are gonna look like, right? Because we can't formulate a budget for next year if we don't know what we're gonna get this year. And so, building permits. So here's building permits. We budgeted last year $15,000. Through March 31st of 2020, we had only gotten in $7,703. So the next 2 months are, no, I'm sorry, that's actually,
One more.
no, one more month. There's only one more month. So our fiscal year is May 1st to April 30th. May 1st to April 30th. So there's only 1 month of revenues that's missing from that. So we've seen a fall off in building permits. I talked to Tony.
Residential construction is slow.
Yes.
That's our biggest number.
Yes. New residential construction has fallen off, not even significant, immensely. So I was at Carter Brothers, talking to Jeff Carter and Tony Ridinghouse. Now, while their numbers are still good and up there, essentially from years in the past, the amount of new housing starts is pretty much non-existent from what they tell me. There are a lot of decks, pools, sheds, sales for remodeling, attics, porches, things like that. And it's keeping them, moving forward. But when we start talking about the village of Sherman and the revenues that those bring in, a pool is what, 50 bucks? What is it?
$50. Any accessories
50 bucks.
is $50.
Versus if you're building a, I don't know, 2,200 square foot house, what would the fee?
$1,000.
1,000 bucks. So you can see why that revenue source is literally about 50% of what it was. And Mr. Stratton here, you work in the office day in and day out. Have you seen anything change regarding building permits come in and like residential structures going up?
Well, like you said, the residential structures themselves, new construction, has slowed down considerably.
Yeah. Have we
We're
gotten-
issuing a lot more accessory structures, sheds, pools, 11 pools,
Mhm.
and other things.
Have you seen any new building permits come in for new construction?
This year,
Yeah, in the last couple months.
I count them on my hand. In the last few months, no.
Yeah. So that's what I'm trying to get to, is the fact that we're not getting $1,000 for a building permit, or 700 or 600 based on the size of those houses. We're getting $50, $25 for a fence, stuff like that. And so that's a revenue source that's literally being affected to about 50% of what it was.